It is absolutely hysterical that YouTube identifies me as a musician. I don't know why that is, but if you look next to my name, it has like a musical note. I am the worst singer in this country. Maybe there's a guy in northern Canada just absolutely miserable as a grizzly, but no, he even sounds better than me probably. I have the worst voice there is. I'm not a musician, yet I guess that's what YouTube hey, come see me out on tour. I'll be talking about more of these NHL playoff series. We got another one right now between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Minnesota Wild, the Western Conference quarterfinal, the number 1 seed, but not the top number 1 seed, the second number 1 seed versus the number 1 wild card. I know I told you this a couple of videos ago. What a donkey system. But is this going to be a donkey kind of series? This series is one people just kind of said, no, well, I'm doing my bracket. Let's just fill that in. Yeah, click Vegas Golden Knights and we can just be on our merry way. This is a let's be on our merry way series. For you. Not for old Andy here. I've been thinking about it. Every single year, you see things in the playoffs that kind of surprise you. That's why this is not the NBA. That's why people can watch these previews and be excited all around. Because in the NBA, when do you have to tune in kind of like game 5 or 6 of the conference finals? And those are the only teams that can potentially win it. In the NHL, we've seen it all. We've seen multiple 8 seeds go to the Stanley Cup. We've seen the Kings win the Stanley Cup from the 8 seed. A couple years ago, we saw the Panthers as the 8 seed just taking out great teams one after another. We saw the defending Stanley Cup champion Avalanche, much to my chagrin, lose to the cockroach expansion Kraken, who didn't make the playoffs. Then they just made it that year and haven't even been close since. They beat the Avalanche, who didn't even get taken to a Game 7 the year before that. That's the beauty of the NHL. Could also be the curse of the NHL for you moneyline series, you series parlayers have serious problems on your hands, because I don't know how you can watch these series year after year and just think, oh yeah, let's pencil them in, pencil them in, pencil them in. You always get all sorts of upsets along the way. Could this be one of them? I ask to you. Or were you just an early penciler? Were you already on to that next part of the bracket? Well, I'm going to tell you a couple treat things about this series that I find fascinating. Number 1, styles make, as you can see, the saying is styles make fights. Styles make sniffs. This may be a sniffer's ideal series. In terms of excitement, I'm not sure if this is going to be the casual watchers, new hockey viewers. This might not be the best one for you, but fortunately for you, this is the one that they're going to tuck in there at like 9 o'clock. You already got your 7 and your 8. They're sneaking this one in at 9. You're not even really watching it. It's not on TNT. It's not on TBS. They're putting this on Court TV or whatever the third one is down that they air some of these games on. But styles make fights. Styles make sniffs. Many times I allude to playoff unders, clenched ass cheeks hockey. Well, you have 2 teams who really know how to engage in that. I'm not talking about Floyd Mayweather fighting Floyd Mayweather or something. On the Vegas Golden Knights side, obviously we know this about their coach, Bruce Cassidy. He did it with the Bruins, and then he went over there to Vegas, got them to the Stanley Cup. It's been nothing but success since he's been there. I mean, even in that 7-game series loss to Dallas, I thought they played fine. They could have won that series, went to the conference final. They beat Florida last year. They probably would have fared better against the Florida Panthers because they were a deeper and bigger team who could have matched up well against them. So I'm not going to hold last year's 7-game series loss against a great number 1 seed Dallas team against them. They played Dallas the previous year. They beat Dallas. Then Dallas returned the favor the following year. But this Golden Knights team, to me, it's a little bit different. It's not like these previous Golden Knights teams. But the one thing that is consistent, like I said, is they are reliable defensively, and also they get reliable goaltending. Adin Hill is a very, 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 very good goalie. Hard to say great, because you only want to leave that for a few goalies, 5 max. But he's right. He's knocking on that door. He's trying to get in that attic, and they keep trying to close the door on his head. By the way, I went into my attic the other day. What a solid invention, that pull down yank and the stairs just perfectly come down. What an amazing invention. Like, imagine someone brought that to Shark Tank now. All right, sharks. Another thing. Oh, this is me just ranting. This is what happens when I make too many videos. I despise the openings on Shark Tank. Do you ever see those? I understand these people are not paid performers. They're not actors. Nobody's asking them to be. But their opening, when they go, "Hi, I'm Tim, and I'm Tom, and we're the Thompsons." I would immediately say, I'm out. I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't care. You could have the best thing ever. I'm not investing in a company where you guys rehearse that and that's the best that you... If that's your best performance now, I'm not going to trust you on that manufacturing floor. No, absolutely. I'm out. Wait, what do you have? The attic stairs come down? I'm back in. What the hell am I talking about? I don't know, but I need to get back to talking about this Golden Knights Wild Series. Unders hockey is what both of these teams mostly like to play. And Adin Hill, as I said, that's what it was. The attic door. Wow. You see how much, you sure you want to be me? You want to be me? Imagine what this haunted house of a mine does on its own. Look where I just ran to. Start Adin Hill goaltending, attic, invention, Shark Tank. Now we're all the way back around to let you know that Minnesota also has a high quality goaltender in Gustafsson. Gustafsson was tied with Connor Hellebuck for the Vezina odds, like a full third of the way through the season. So he was neck and neck. Obviously, Hellebuck pulled away, and the Jets continued to do what they did. But you're talking about one of the best goalies in the NHL this year for long stretches. He should be nicely rested. He should be good to go for this series. So you have two very good goalies, not willing to say great, attic and all. And then you have two teams who preach defense, and you have a Minnesota Wild team who had to play shorthanded for the majority of the season. They had to adapt and play defense. You guys remember this with the sniffs at the end of the year. I said, well, if they're trying to win this game, they got to keep their opponent under 2. It's got to be a 3-2, 2-1 type game. And they are very familiar with that brand of hockey. Now, why is that? Why did they have to become familiar with that brand of hockey? Because they had to deal with some brutal injuries, which brings me to this point. Are the Wild really even a wild card team? This is a wild card team. People like you just penciled them in to lose this series. You just sent Vegas on their merry way. The Minnesota Wild had the MVP in the league. The unanimous, forget about Draisaitl. Draisaitl was also looking up through that attic door at Kaprizov, who was the unanimous MVP of the NHL before he got injured. He was on pace for an absurd season. He was going to beat Kucherov, Draisaitl, all of them. It was him sitting at the top by himself. And then he missed most of this season. Before Kaprizov left and before the Wild dealt with a whole plethora of injuries, do you want to know where they sat? Right at the top of the NHL with the other elite teams. They were having an incredible year. And it makes sense. Think about it. They have a few players who are now a few years into their career. Boldy and Eriksson-Ek. They're not superstars, but they're once again, a lot of attic doors in this year, a lot of closed attic doors in this series, but they're both all-star level players. Boldy definitely, Eriksson-Ek not far off. And then an MVP level player in Kaprizov. They were tops in the NHL, right under Winnipeg, tied with Washington. That's where they were around Christmas. So they lost their MVP level player. So if Edmonton lost Draisaitl for the year and there wasn't even a McDavid around, would you really hold it against them? If McDavid came back, you'd say, okay, this is the team we're getting. I really think there's a lot of that with this Wild team. The Wild are definitely better than their record, which is still good, suggests. Take what they were after Kaprizov was gone and take their record, which was essentially close to first in the NHL while he was there, add them together, divide by 2. That's kind of what their record would have been. And that's a very good record. This is more of a 2 or 3 type team, which is where they were sitting most of the season, than they are some wild card. So I don't think anybody should be disrespecting the Minnesota Wild, because while those players were out, they were sharpening those knives, those unders knives, because they had to win so many low-scoring, close games. there's nothing better to train you for the playoffs than having to play like that. So we have a team who plays unders hockey, getting their all-stars back. They have Eriksson-Ek and Kaprizov back. And that allowed them, by the way, to fix a power play that was struggling. They had a power play that was immensely struggling, as you'd expect. You take two of your best 5 players off it. Now they have a 5-forward power play that was humming at the end of the year, kind of like the Kings, where they kind of discovered that very late, and we're going to see if that gets translated into the playoffs. So I'm not disrespecting Minnesota like many people, many quick bracket fillers probably are. Next up here, the Vegas Golden Knights. And this really shouldn't shock anyone, but the 2023 Vegas Golden Knights are clearly better than the 2025 Vegas Golden Knights. Just look at the roster up and down. Look at the players that were there. Look at the ages of the players that were there. And many of the same players who were on this team were on that team, and they were 2 years younger, a little bit better, and more so in their prime. I would argue that the team that lost to the Dallas Stars in 7 games in round 1 are better than this version of the Vegas team. The Vegas team is that friend of yours. They do everything good. You have that friend. You need to rely on them. Like, oh my God, we're playing volleyball in the pool on spring break, and we need somebody who's not going to make us look like an imbecile. Call him in. Call in that guy who you know is good at absolutely everything, but not great at anything. The Vegas Golden Knights are jacks of all trades, but masters of none. And I honestly like that for the most part for a playoff style. I like you being good at everything. It certainly helps when you're elite at one thing, but they're good from top to bottom, but they're not as good as those previous iterations of the Vegas teams who had more proven, reliable players. Like, you had Marchessault, who came through with so many goals. He came through with goals last year in that one series. And, I mean, he was part of the original Stanley Cup team. He was huge for them come playoff time. Riley Smith, Riley Smith is obviously not what he was, 5 years ago, let alone 2 years ago. And they traded for him and brought him back. And then you have Olofsson and Dorofeev, complete unprovens. This is not some star-studded team that we saw last year when they stashed Stone on IR, and then they brought him in, and they had Stevenson and Marchessault and Hurdle and all these guys. Pavel Dorofeev was on the roster last year and didn't even play because they had that many good players in their lineup, and they had to let these guys go, like the Amadios. They let so many of them go, but that was a not star-studded team. That was a studded team where you couldn't find a hole anywhere in that lineup. Pavel Dorofeev couldn't even get into that lineup even last year. And I think this team is not as talented as last year's team that lost in round 1, and definitely not as good as the team from 2 years ago. The one thing that has gotten better is Eichel, because Eichel, obviously, more years removed from that back surgery, he's just a bona fide superstar. You saw it during the Four Nations. He's incredible. But look at the wingers they're relying on. And then obviously this is an Andy point to you. People are going to tell you, oh, they have Mark Scam Star Stone. Mark Stone, he's just fully dust. He's dust. And all I can say, in the early part of the season, he was accruing a ton of points because that was the equivalent of playing with Nikita Kucherov, which is exactly what Jack Eichel was. Jack Eichel had an amazing year, and anybody who played with him had the trickle-down benefits of playing with Eichel. You look at the games that Eichel didn't play, or here, closer to the end of the season when they were resting Eichel, go check out Mark Scamstone's game log. Watch Mark Stone skate. It looks like somebody who just learned how to skate this year. He's skating in quicksand out there. And as I said about many of these players, they're not as good as they were a couple years ago. But in totality, they are a great ironed team. Like I said, they do everything pretty well. But in a series that I think is going to have many low-scoring games, and you're going to hear the word under out of my mouth a lot as we talk about this series, 1 or 2 plays are going to make the difference. Who has more players that can make 1 or 2 plays? When you look at who's supposed to lead this series in goals, they don't even know who to put up there because the Vegas Golden Knights are clearly heavily favored in this series, but it's like, all right, well, who's their top goal scorer? It's goal scoring by committee. Once again, which I like. I like that in many circumstances. If they were playing some mediocre team, what I'm saying to you, I believe Minnesota is closer to that team that we saw earlier in the year that was pretty dominant. They have a lot of good players, and it's not like their depth players aren't good. Those players who had to step up in top six roles are now back down to their tradition. You know, the Goudreaus, the Hartmans, they traded for Nyquist. A lot of good players on this ice. And by golly, I fancy them to potentially win this series. I think we're going to do very well on this series on a game-to-game basis regardless. So that's the good news. You got to take bold shots every once in a while. This, to me, is a calculated underdog sniff. I'm taking the Minnesota Wild to win this series. And my biggest fear is what you see right there. The Minnesota Wild have the least talked about Toronto Maple Leafs playoff history that nobody gives them a hard time for. I don't know. Like, maybe sometimes I always wonder, if I lived in Minnesota and my whole life was surrounded by Minnesota stuff, is there harsh criticism in all the local outlets? Is there everyone giving scathing reviews like they did of that the Yankee guy who went to the Mets? What was his name? Elgardo Alfonso? I don't know who the hell it was. I really, how bad is it? I can't tell you the guy's name. It's he does some little shimmy when he's up there. I have no clue who he is. I forgot already. But is Minnesota, like, do they have their versions of the newspapers just crushing them? Like the people in Toronto will crush their players if they no-show, or players in New York get crushed if they no-show? I have no clue, because, you know, they get eliminated from the playoffs every single year. Every single year. They've had some number one seeds in there, and they've been eliminated. They have a playoff demon hovering over their shoulders. Like, to the Toronto group, they got one playoff series win. This Minnesota group doesn't. So trust me when I tell you, this call, actually, when you look at that, seems a whole hell of a lot crazier and scarier. I'll be the first to admit, I could be wrong if they truly lock them down and they're getting no scoring chances. But I believe that the difference makers in this series, there are more potential of them on Minnesota's side. So I'm going with the Minnesota Wild. How do you like that? Go ahead. Put your all caps gargoyle comments in this section. The gargoyles have had to stay quiet for a while. How about you let them come out and speak their mind for a bit? Gargoyles, the all caps has been activated, so leave your comments and drop them below. Even if you're a non-gargoyle, please leave some comments below. Engage with these videos. That's what I keep asking you. You tell me you like these videos, which you're doing in the comments. It has to be reflected in the views and comments and everything. Because when I retroactively look, if I see that these don't stack up, then no more previews for you. But if they do stack up, then I will do more of them, because this is the way the world works. You want, I give. I break, you buy. Anyway, do those things that I always ask for. Engage with these videos, like, comment, share it with someone, click the notifications so you know when the next video comes out. And as I always tell you, you can be a sponsor of this show. And that really just means putting money directly in my pocket to show appreciation for the work that I'm doing here. Oh, somebody's actually holding a light right there. No, they aren't, because I do all of this myself. So it would be very much appreciated. Happy to have you over there. And it doesn't come without benefits, like the plus 530 something unit season. It was actually even more than that. It was a plus 30 unit night, or 35 unit night. Just insane all around. There's the chat threads in there. Josh puts his baseball picks. I know I keep telling you this, but there are many reasons to be over there. Hope to see you there. If not, I will see you for the next video. Take it easy. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you later.